Before we open the file, I need you to suspend your moral judgment for a moment. We are not here to talk about good or evil. We are here to talk about physics, specifically the second law of thermodynamics.
That sounds like a heavy way to start a documentary about society. The second law states that entropy always increases. Right. Things fall apart. Chaos is inevitable.
Exactly. The universe has a fundamental preference for disorder. If you leave a cup of coffee on the table, it cools down. It reaches equilibrium with the room. It becomes a uniform, lukewarm sludge. That is what the universe wants for everything. It wants you to be room temperature. It wants you to be dust.
Okay, so the universe is trying to kill me. I can accept that. But what does this have to do with discipline? Usually, when people talk about discipline, they mean waking up early or going to the gym.
They think discipline is a lifestyle choice. They are wrong. Discipline is a thermodynamic necessity. It is the energy you spend to keep your internal structure from dissolving into the background. You are a biological machine that is constantly fighting a war against equilibrium. And today, I want to show you what happens when you stop fighting.
What happens when we let the entropy win?
We have data on that. A very specific, very terrifying set of data. Let's look at the first case study. Open the document to page 1.
The beautiful ones. The image here is haunting. A single mouse, perfectly groomed, sitting in a beam of light. It looks peaceful, almost angelic.
That mouse is the end of the world. This comes from the famous Universe 25 experiment by John B. Calhoun in 1968. He built a utopia: unlimited food, unlimited water, perfect climate control, no predators. He removed every single external stressor.
So it was a paradise. No hunger, no danger. You would think the population would explode, and they would be happy.
That is the human assumption. We think struggle is the enemy. But look at the key statistic. 0 struggle, 100% extinction.
100%. The entire colony died out.
Every single one. But it is the asterisk way asterisk. They died. That proves the thermodynamics thesis. As the population peaked, this group emerged called the beautiful ones. These were males who withdrew from society entirely.
Why did he call them beautiful ones?
Because they had no scars. They never fought. They never competed for mates. They just ate, slept, and groomed themselves. They were physically perfect, but they were empty.
They sound depressed, or maybe just checked out.
It was deeper than depression. It was entropy. You see, social behavior, mating, fighting, hierarchy, is a complex high-energy structure. It requires friction to maintain. When Calhoun removed the struggle, he removed the boundary conditions that held that structure together.
So without the need to fight for food or territory, the complex behaviors just dissolved.
Exactly. The social code script disintegrated. The colony spiraled into a behavioral sink. They stopped breeding. They stopped caring for the young. They just existed as consumers of resources until they died of old age, leaving no generation behind.
That is a chilling thought. You are saying that the struggle wasn't just a hurdle. It was the scaffolding holding their society up.
Discipline isn't a burden. It's the structural integrity of survival. If you remove the resistance, you don't get freedom. You get death.
That directly contradicts everything we are sold today. We are constantly told that the goal of technology is to remove friction, to make everything easy.
And that is exactly why we are in danger. We are engineering our own Universe 25. Let's look at the modern version of this trap. Turn to page 2.
The blue pill, freedom. This is a montage of our daily lives. Neon signs, delivery apps, endless scrolling. It looks like a cyberpunk city.
It is the architecture of maximum entropy. Look at the notifications on the screen. You are missing out. Instant gratification. We are sold this idea that having infinite options is the definition of freedom.
Isn't it? If I can order sushi at 3 a.m. or watch any movie ever made, isn't that liberty?
In physics, entropy measures the wiggle room, the number of accessible microstates. The more states you can be in, the higher the entropy. When you have infinite options and zero constraints, you don't have freedom. You have noise.
Infinite options equals maximum entropy. I feel that. It is the paralysis of choice. When I have 1,000 things to watch, I end up watching nothing.
That is the slurry. You are experiencing thermodynamic equilibrium. You are vibrating with potential choices, but doing no actual work. The slide says it clearly. We are sold a vision of freedom that is actually just thermodynamic equilibrium.
So, real freedom requires limits.
Real freedom requires structure. Calhoun's mice didn't die from overcrowding. The slide notes that the behavioral sink was caused by noise. Unconstrained interaction overwhelmed the signal.
We are drowning in noise.
And we call it liberty. We frame discipline as oppression. We think that if we stop restricting ourselves, we will be our authentic selves. But the data shows that without the restriction cost, behavior dissolves into randomness.
Randomness, that is the opposite of a life well lived. A life well lived has a narrative. It has a direction.
Exactly. A narrative is a constraint. It cuts off options. To be someone, you have to refuse to be everyone. But let's go deeper. This isn't just about sociology. This is about your actual biology. Your cells know this rule better than you do. Move to page 3.
The hardware, the aperiodic crystal. This looks like science fiction. A metallic DNA helix with sparks flying.
This is where we get into the work of Erwin Schrödinger. In 1944, he wrote a book called Asterisk, What is Life? Asterisk, he asked a simple question. How does life survive the second law of thermodynamics?
If the universe wants disorder, how do we stay ordered?
Schrödinger's answer was that life acts as an aperiodic crystal. A crystal is ordered, but it repeats, like a wallpaper pattern. It's static. Life is aperiodic. It has order, but it never repeats. It is dynamic.
The slide says 10 times more energy efficient. That is a massive difference.
Because life is a dissipative structure. You exist by sucking negentropy, negative entropy, from your environment. You eat food, which is ordered energy. You use it to build your structure, and you excrete heat and waste, which is high entropy.
So I am basically an entropy vacuum cleaner.
You are a machine that delays the inevitable. But look at the cost. Structure is a restriction cost. Your DNA restricts energy flow into very specific paths. It forces chemical reactions to stop, or to turn left instead of right.
We pay energy to stop chemical reactions. That is fascinating. So being alive is actually about inhibition. It is about stopping the natural flow of things.
Precisely. Your very existence is an act of defiance. You are fighting the universe every second. If you stop paying that energy cost, if you stop disciplining your matter, you die.
And that brings us to the brain. Because if our body is an entropy machine, our mind must be doing the same thing.
The mind is the master of this process. The brain is the most efficient entropy filter in the known universe. Let's look at the specs on page 4.
The software, the silent cortex. It compares 20 watts to megawatts.
Your brain consumes about 20 watts of power. That is a dim light bulb. To replicate what your brain does using silicon chips, AI, you currently need megawatts of power.
Why are we so much more efficient? Is it just better wiring?
It is better software strategy. The slide calls it a minimal representational strategy. Your brain doesn't process everything. It aggressively ignores almost everything.
Intelligence is the discipline of silence. That sounds like a Zen koan.
But it is neurobiology. The prefrontal cortex uses activity-silent, subthreshold dynamics. It actively suppresses noise. If your brain reacted to every photon of light and every sound wave, you would have a seizure. You would overheat.
So we are intelligent because we know what asterisk, not asterisk, to think about.
Correct. The brain filters out environmental noise to maintain a low-entropy internal state. Think about the free energy principle mentioned here. The brain exists to minimize surprise. It wants the world to be predictable.
So when we seek out chaos, or when we doom scroll and flood our brains with random information, we are working against our own biology.
We are breaking the filter. We are flooding a 20-watt system with megawatt levels of noise. That is why everyone is exhausted. It is metabolic discipline. You are intelligent because you are constrained.
Constraint seems to be the theme here. But where did this start? Did we evolve this? Or is it just a lucky accident?
It is the definition of life itself. It goes back to the very beginning. Go to page 5.
The source code, molecular tyranny. We are going back for 0 billion years. The visual is a glitching digital matrix of RNA.
People think evolution is about random mutations. But that is only half the story. The start of life was the refusal to be random.
Maximum entropy production principle. That sounds complicated.
It is the paradox of life. We build internal order, low entropy, specifically to degrade the external universe faster. But look at the molecular choice.
Life began when molecules chose specific pathways and blocked others.
Imagine a pool of chemicals. Most of them are reacting randomly, but suddenly, one molecule starts copying itself with fidelity. It follows a rule. It has a code. That self-replication is the ultimate discipline.
So the very first living thing was just a molecule that decided to follow a routine.
And everything that didn't follow a routine was erased. Natural selection is the enforcement of thermodynamic discipline. The environment is the auditor. If your internal entropy gets too high, if your code gets too sloppy, you die.
We are the survivors of a 4 billion year war against error. That makes me feel a little more responsible for my own choices. I am carrying a torch that has been kept burning against the chaos for eons.
You are, but our current civilization is trying to blow that torch out. We are trying to build a world where error doesn't matter, where there is no cost for being wrong.
And that brings us back to the glitch we are seeing today, the feeling that something is wrong with modern society.
It is the in-time economy. Let's look at page 6.
The glitch, tired infinity. I remember this movie. Time is money. If you run out of time on your arm, you die.
It is a perfect metaphor for thermodynamics. Look at the two worlds. New Greenwich is where the rich live. They have millions of years. They are immortal.
But they are bored. The slide says, tired infinity.
They have high potential energy, but zero kinetic energy. Because they have no scarcity, they have no drive. They have lost the capacity to generate meaning.
Thermodynamic death of meaning. That is a profound phrase. Meaning requires consequences.
Meaning requires stakes. Price equals life. If your time costs nothing, your life is worth nothing. Compare that to the Dayton ghetto in the movie.
That is where the poor live. It is chaotic, fast, dangerous. The slide says, maximum entropy.
Right. So you have one side that is stagnant equilibrium, New Greenwich, and one side that is chaotic entropy, Dayton. Both are bad. Life exists on the edge.
The slide says we are trying to engineer a world of New Greenwich comfort. We want the safety, the immortality, the ease.
But we don't realize that it is a thermodynamic anomaly. It is a fake state. And because we have removed the restriction costs of survival, we are seeing the symptoms.
Social autism/withdrawal. Loss of code script. This links back to the mice on slide 1. We are becoming the beautiful ones.
We are. If nothing resists you, you do no work. Without work, structure dissolves. We are structurally destined to collapse because we are removing the very thing that makes us human. The struggle against entropy.
So, what is the answer? We can't just destroy civilization and go back to hunting and gathering. We can't fake a struggle.
We don't need to fake it. The world is chaotic enough. We just need to change how we engage with it. We need to stop trying to be comfortable and start trying to be controlled.
Okay, give me the solution. How do we fight this? Turn to page 7.
The horizon, proactive control. The image is a figure standing in a storm, adjusting machinery.
To exist is to resist. That is a catchy slogan. But what does it mean practically?
It means accepting the free energy principle. Biological systems must minimize surprise. But in a modern world, surprise and chaos are everywhere.
So we need active inference. We don't just watch the world. We act on it to make it fit our models.
Exactly. You cannot wait for the world to give you structure. You have to build it. The slide lists 4 dimensions of control.
Learning orientation, goal orientation, change orientation, and risk-taking.
Think about Maxwell's demon. It is a physics thought experiment about a tiny demon who controls a door between 2 gas chambers. He sorts the hot molecules from the cold ones,
creating order out of chaos.
That is your job. You must be the demon. You have to look at the chaos of your life, the noise, the notifications, the impulses, and actively sort them. This is signal, that is noise. This is useful, that is waste.
So discipline isn't about punishing yourself because you are bad. It is about sorting yourself so you don't dissolve.
Discipline is not a punishment. It is the only vessel capable of navigating the entropy of the future. We need to build new aperiodic crystals, new self-imposed constraints.
We have to become harder to kill, not physically, but thermodynamically.
We have to choose to be structured, because the alternative isn't freedom. The alternative is just fading away.
Well, I think I am going to put my phone in the other room and actually focus on one thing for an hour.
That is the most rebellious thing you can do. Reduce your entropy. Start now.